Hello students, welcome back. This is Dr. Mercado speaking. In this lecture we are going to be covering problem 16.2 in chapter 16 dealing with job order costing. Now this is a problem which means it's longer in length. It is going to take me a little bit longer to explain. It's a little bit challenging, but it's a very comprehensive problem that allows us to record transactions from the beginning, posting them to our work in process, then transferring to finished goods, and then finally at the end selling some of our goods and then recording that entry to our cost of goods sold. So it's a very comprehensive problem, and I am going to go in depth in this problem because you are going to be seeing it on your test. Okay, so it's very important that you pay extra close attention to this problem because you need to master it, because you're going to see it not only in your homework but in your upcoming test number 1. Okay, so you've been warned. Okay, so let me go ahead and jump in to problem 16.2. Okay, so problem 16.2 deals with entries and schedules for unfinished jobs and completed jobs. So here we have Kurt's Fencing, which uses a job order cost system. The following data summarizes the operations related to the production for March, the first month of operations. It's a brand new company, and this is what happened during the month. During the month, we had a series of transactions, and I'm going to go through that in a bit. It's just I'm going to, we're going to go through it a step at a time, but they give you a lot of information, okay? And then these are the instructions. So I'm going to jump to the instructions and then we'll go back. So the first requirement is for us to journalize the entries to record the summarized operations. So they're giving us a series of operations. We have to journalize them. The second thing that they're asking us to do is to post the appropriate entries to T accounts for 2 accounts, for the work in process and for the finished goods account, using the identifying letters and transaction codes. We have to insert memo account balances as of the end of the month. Then for requirement 3, we have to prepare a schedule of unfinished jobs to support the balance in the work in process account. And then last but not least, we have to prepare a schedule of completed jobs on hand to support the balance in the finished goods account. Okay, so we have quite a bit to do. So the first thing that they're asking us to do is to journalize the transaction. So we're going to go through every transaction and we're going to journalize them in a journal. I've already got my journal set up right here, and we're going to start with letter A. Okay, so letter A says materials purchased on account. So what does on account mean? That means that we're going to pay it later. We owe this money. Okay, so materials purchased on account, $45,000. So what did we purchase? Well, we purchased materials. That is going to be debited. Okay, 45,000. Materials is an asset. The materials belong to us, so we have to debit it. Okay, how do we pay for these materials? Well, it says that we paid them on account, so then that would be an accounts payable of 45,000. Okay, so that is requirement A. Okay, we purchase materials on account for 45,000. Okay, now letter B. Materials requisitioned and factory labor used. Okay, these are the different jobs that we had going on, and we have different or allocated expenses for materials and labor for each of the jobs. Okay, so we used all of this materials and all of these labor in the processing or in the manufacturing of our job of our fences. That's what we're making here, fences. Okay. So we need to get the total. Okay, so let me get my calculator. Okay, the total materials that were used were 1850 plus 3150 plus 2200, 1800, 4230, 1770, and 1200. Okay, that gives me 16,200. So I'm going to write that down. Okay, 16,200 is your materials. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing for my factory labor. 2,500, 7220, 5350, 2,400, 6225, 2,900, and 5,000. Okay, that gives me 31,595 for my factory labor. So I'm going to write that number down. Okay, so we had 16,200 in materials, and I'm going to add 31,595 in labor. That gives me 47,795. Okay, so let me see if I added correctly. At 16,000, let me see, 16,200 plus 31,595. Yes, so that gives me 47,795. Now we have to be super careful here, okay? Because included in these columns, we have an item here that says for general factory use. And what does that mean? General factory use means that is my overhead, okay? So we do not include that part in my regular materials or labor, okay? So we have to exclude the general factory use of materials and labor. So then I'm going to subtract your $1,200 for materials, and I'm going to subtract your $5,000 for labor because that is your overhead, okay? That will give you 41,595, okay? So you're basically adding everything except whatever is for general factory use. For general factory use is your overhead, okay? So that gives me 41,595. You can do that, add all of them and then subtract those two, or if you just want to add all of the numbers up to where it says job order 306. Just add the materials for job orders 301 through 306, okay? I just like to add everything and then exclude my overhead. It just makes it simpler for me, especially if you're using Excel. It just makes it easier for you, okay? So that gives me 41,595. Once again, we're going to add everything from job order 301 all the way through 306, okay? And we're going to exclude for general factory use. I'm going to jump over here. Okay, 2,400, 6,225, 2,900. So that gives me the 41,595. So this is my direct materials and my direct labor. Okay, so that's going to go under work in process. Okay, now we have the overhead components. Okay, so your factory overhead is that last item that says for general factory use, okay, which is your 1,200 and your 5,000. That gives you $6,200. Okay. Now, it says you requisition. Whenever we requisition, that means that we requested it from the warehouse because we're going to put it to use. We're going to start manufacturing or making our fences or whatever it is that we're doing. So when we requisition, our materials will be decreasing because we no longer have them in our warehouse. Okay? So we have to decrease the materials and we have to, in this case, pay the labor that we have here. Okay? That has been used up to manufacture these or work on these specific jobs. So let's first focus on materials. Okay, how many materials did we requisition? Well, we requisitioned all of these materials. Okay, so that includes your overhead. Okay, so it's the 1,850 plus the 3,150, the 2,200, 1,800, 4,230, 1,770, and 1,200. Okay, so we requisitioned $16,200 of material. So that means that we had the materials in our warehouse, we requisitioned them, we took them out of the warehouse, and we're going to start using them. Okay, the materials will include the overhead materials, the indirect materials. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to credit our wages payable. Okay, it doesn't say that we're paying our employees, but we are responsible to pay them these dollar amounts that we have here, and that includes our overhead. So for that, it's going to be the sum of your factory labor, which we had already added, but I'm going to do it again just so you can know. We're just adding the last column, which is your factory overhead. Okay, that's 31,595. Okay, so that is how much we owe in indirect and direct labor and materials, the 16,200 and the 31,595. That includes direct and indirect. Now, when we put into working process, we're only going to enter the amount of direct materials and direct labor. So that is where we exclude this last line item right here. And then we break it down into the second category, which is our factory overhead. Okay, letter C. Factory overhead costs incurred on account $1,800. Okay, so what are we incurring? Factory overhead of $1,800. Okay, and how are we paying? On account, so it's going to be accounts payable. Okay, $1,800. So whenever it says on account, it's accounts payable. Okay. Letter D. Okay. It's depreciation of machinery and equipment. So we have machinery, and they're telling it it's being depreciated for $2,500. So that the depreciation is going to go. Depreciation is part of your overhead. Okay. So it's going to be under factory overhead, and we have depreciation of $2,500. Okay. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to credit our accumulated depreciation for machinery and equipment. Okay, 2,500. Okay. Letter E. The factory overhead rate is $30 per machine hour. Machine hours used, and they give you the machine hours per job. And we have a total machine hours of 300. So they're telling you that for every machine hour, we're going to pay $30 of overhead. Okay, so we have to calculate our overhead that was used in all of these jobs. Okay, so to be able to calculate that, we're going to have total hours, machine hours, 300 times the $30 per machine hour. Okay, and let's see what that gives us. That gives us $9,000. Okay, so they're telling you here that the overhead rate is $30 per hour. We have 300 hours. We have to allocate that overhead over to our work in process. So my work in process is going to be debited, the $9,000. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to credit my factory overhead. Okay, $9,000. So what we're doing here is we're assigning the overhead to our work in process. Okay, that was letter E. Okay. Now letter F is a little bit complicated. They're telling you that they completed jobs 301, 302, 303, and 305. Okay. So we have to do some calculations before we do our entries. Okay. So let's do the job number here. 302, that's how many jobs we have. 301. Okay, these are these are just regular. That's job number 301, 302, 303, and 305. Okay. Okay. That's the job number. But you know what? Let me put these, let me move these over here. Job 301, 302, 303, and 305. And then we have different components. We have our direct materials. materials. We have our direct labor and our factory overhead. Okay, so that's how I'm setting it up. Okay, direct materials, direct labor, factory overhead, and my total. And these are the jobs that were completed: 301, 302, 303, and 305. Okay, so we're gonna go and we're gonna locate for direct materials up here. Materials, we're gonna locate those amounts. Okay, so it said 301. Okay, 301 is 1850 and 2500 for labor. And then we have 302 is 3150 and 7220. 303 is 2200 and 5350. How much was it? I'm sorry, 2200 and 5350. Okay, 2200 and 5350. So all I'm doing is I'm just copying from up here my materials and my labor. And then we have 305, which is 4230 and 6225. Now, your factory overhead. Your overhead is down here. Remember, it's $30 per hour, and these are the number of hours. Okay? So for 301, we have, let me move my calculator, 30 hours times $30, that's 900. For 302, it's 60 hours times 30, that's 1800. For 303, it's 41 hours times $30, that's 1230. And then for 305, it's 70 times 30, that's 2100. Okay. And then for the total, we're just going to add your materials, your labor, your direct materials, your direct labor, and your factory overhead. You're going to add them together. Okay. And that will give you your total for each of the jobs, and then you just get the total for all of the jobs that were completed. Okay, so all I'm doing is I'm adding. Okay, so you get your direct materials, your direct labor, your overhead. You add those three columns together to get your total, and then you add your different jobs: 301, 302, 303, and 305, and that gives you your total down here. Now that we have done these calculations, we can do our actual journal entry. Okay, so it says that the jobs were completed. When a job is completed, we move the amount of our direct materials, direct labor, and overhead from work in process to finished goods. Okay, so we are moving it into finished goods because these jobs have been completed, and the amount is $38,755. Okay, right there. And what are we doing? We are removing these items from my work in process. Okay, why? Because they've been completed. Okay, so work in process gets credited $38,755. So what happens is we accumulate all of these costs, direct materials, direct labor, and overhead in work in process. Once the actual jobs are complete, we calculate the total, and then, if they've been completed, we transfer the balance from work in process to finished goods, okay, which is what we're doing right now. These jobs are done, so let's transfer over our direct materials, direct labor, and overhead to finished goods because these goods or these jobs are ready to be sold. Okay. Letter G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right here. Okay, jobs were shipped and customers were billed as follows. Okay, so we are actually shipping these goods out. Okay, and the customers are being billed, so they're going to pay us at a later point in time. So we've got job number 301, 302, 303. We've got 3 jobs that were shipped out. Okay, so let's do our calculations. So job 301, we had already calculated it up here, and we've done the math because it's up here. We had, so let me do like a little arrow, that way you know where I'm getting these numbers from. So these numbers are going down here. Okay. So 301, we had spent 5250. 302, we had spent 12,170, and then 303, we had spent 8780. Okay. So those three jobs have been finished and they have been sold. They've been shipped out. Okay, that gives me 26,200. Okay. Okay. Now, that is how much we spent in manufacturing these fences. Okay, is that where we're making fences? Yes, fencing company. So that's how much it costs us to make the fences. Okay. Now, how much are we selling them for? Well, it says here that we sold 301 for 8,500. We sold 302 for 16,150. And we sold 303 for 13,400. That's $38,050. So we sold these fences for $38,050. Okay. So have we gotten paid yet? No. So we need to set up a receivable. Okay, because they're going to pay us later. Okay. And what did we do? Well, we made a sell. Okay. So that is the first entry. We have to record our sell because we've sold these three jobs. Okay. And we set up a receivable because they're going to pay us later. Now we have to update our records because we no longer have these goods available for sale. Okay. These goods have been shipped. They're gone. So we need to update our books. Okay. So now I'm going to debit my cost of goods sold for my total, which is a 26,200, and I am going to credit my finished goods. Okay, I'm decreasing my balance on my finished goods because I no longer have these goods available. Okay, so that is what's going on. We are transferring our finished goods over to our cost of goods sold because those goods have left our warehouse. They're no longer available. Okay. So those are all of the entries that they're asking us to record. Okay. Now they're asking us to post the appropriate entries to work in process and finished goods. Okay. So I've got my T account set up here for the two accounts. Okay. So we're going to go and we're going to locate anything that deals with work in process. And I'm going to highlight that yellow. Okay. And I'm just going to go through and find anything that has work in process. Okay, there we are. We've got three transactions. Okay. So we are going to transfer that information. So I'm going to put here letter B. 41,595. Okay. Sorry, 41,595. That is a debit. Make sure that you enter it in the correct column, either debit or credit. Then on letter E, I've got another debit of 9,000. Okay. Letter E. I've got another debit of 9,000. And then letter F, I've got a credit of 38,755. That's letter F. Sorry, the wrong column. Letter F. I've got a credit of 38,755. So those are the three accounts that affected my working process. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to foot my T account. I'm going to get my ending balance. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add my debit columns, which is 41,595, plus I have another debit of 9,000. Okay. That gives me 50,595. And then I'm going to subtract my credit of 38,755. So that's going to leave me a balance of 11,840 debit balance. Okay. And you always leave your balance on the side that's the highest. In this case, our debit is higher, so that is going to be my balance. Okay. Okay, we're going to do the same thing for finished goods. We're going to go and we're going to locate anything that is finished goods. Okay, and we have finished goods. We only have one entry. Let me highlight that another color. Okay, right there. So we have one entry to my finished goods. Let me see. Oh no, we have another entry down here. Finished goods right there. I was like, I'm missing an entry. There we go. We have two entries to finished goods. Okay, letter F and letter G. So let's move those over to our T accounts. The first one we have is letter F, and I've got a debit of $38,755. Okay, and then we have letter G. We have got a credit of $26,200. Okay, so now we're going to get our balance. We're going to put our T account, and that gives me a balance of $12,555. Okay, this is my balance. Okay, so that is requirement number 2. Okay, posting the entries to T accounts. Okay, now requirement 3 is to record, requirement 3 is to prepare a schedule of unfinished jobs to support the balance in the work in process. So my work in process says I've got $11,840 worth of work in process of jobs that are still in the pipeline. They haven't been finished. So what jobs are those? Okay, so we have to figure out, and remember, the problem says that we completed jobs 301, 302, 303, and 305. Okay, so let me mark that off here. Okay, so it says that we finished jobs 301, we finished jobs 302, we finished jobs 303, and we finished job 305. So what jobs are pending for us to finish? Well, we're pending to finish job 304 and job 306. Okay, those are the two jobs that we are pending to finish based on the information provided on letter F. Okay, so we need to finish 304 and 306. Okay, so we have to create a schedule. So we know it's job 304 and 306 that we're pending to finish. We're going to locate, first of all, the materials for 304 and the labor. It's 1,800 and 2,400. $306, it's 1,770 and 2,900. And was it 29? Yes, 2,900. Okay, now we can do our overhead. And for 304, we've got 63 hours at $30. That's $1,890. Okay, $1,890 of overhead. And then we've got 36 hours at $30. That's $1,080. Okay. And then we add those together. Okay. And that gives me $11,840. And guess what? That is the amount that we have on our work in process balance. We have $11,840 in our work in process, and that is represented by jobs 304 and 306 that give you that $11,840. Your T account needs to balance to your schedule of unfinished jobs. So this is the detail of this number. So they ask you, well, how much do you have in work in process? Well, I've got $11,840 in work in process. Well, this schedule tells you what exactly is unfinished. Well, we have unfinished jobs 304 and 306. Okay. Now, the last requirement says to prepare a schedule of completed jobs on hand. Okay. Completed jobs on hand. That's going to be our finished goods. Okay. So here it says that we completed jobs 301, 302, 303, and 305. And then it says that we shipped jobs 301, 302, and 303. Which job have we not shipped? The job that we have not shipped is 305. That job is still pending. It's complete. It's done. It's just waiting to be shipped. So that is my working process. That is my finished goods that's sitting there in my warehouse that we have not sold. Okay, finished goods. And that is job number 305. It's been completed, but we haven't sold it or we haven't shipped it out yet. So it's job 305. And all of this information is obtained by reading carefully the information provided. Okay, so now we know that job 305 has not been shipped, and that is going to be our schedule of completed jobs. We've got job 305. We're going to get our materials for job 305, 4230 and 6225. 4230 and 6225. And then my factory overhead for 305 was 70 hours. 70 times 30, that's $2,100, which you can just get it from here. We had already done those calculations. I'm just doing them over. That way, if you missed it the first time, you know how we got it. Okay, so all of these had already been calculated up here. Okay, and then we get our total. Okay, the sum of those three. We are going to add our materials, direct labor, and factory overhead. And that gives me $12,555. Okay, there we go. So our T accounts need to balance to our schedules. The first one is your work in process needs to balance to your schedule of unfinished jobs. Your finished goods needs to balance to your schedule of completed jobs. Okay, and these are going to be supporting your general ledger balances. Okay, so those are all of my requirements. Okay, long problem, a lot of journalizing. Remember, the first step is to accumulate all of your direct materials, direct labor, and overhead into work in process. Once you've completed the jobs, you move the total from your work in process for the completed jobs. You move that over to finished goods, okay, which is what we did down here. Once you ship out or you sell your goods, then you go ahead and you do the entry to record the sale, and you're going to update your finished goods. You're going to decrease your finished goods to reflect that you've sold those goods and they're no longer in your warehouse. Okay, so this is the problem 16-2. Make sure that you pay extra attention because, like I stated, you will be seeing this on your upcoming test. Okay, very important. Okay, so that is basically it for this lecture. Have a wonderful day, and if you have any questions, do not hesitate to let me know. Make sure, if you want to create your study groups, that would be great. Get to collaborate, communicate with your classmates. Even though it's an online class, you can still make friends in class and help each other out. I'm all for that. And that is basically it. Okay. Until next time. Thank you.